Welcome to Listen to Me, a multi-voiced exploration of the city with 21 guests sharing their personal experiences of Milan's contemporary art, architecture, design, music, fashion and literature. We explore each theme in 4 episodes. Let's continue our walk in Milan with the second episode dedicated to modern and contemporary art. We're going to the beating heart of the city, Piazza del Duomo, the geographic and geometric centre, a religious place, a place of political clashes, a meeting point, the start and the end of every trail. From the centre of the square, with your back towards the Duomo, on your left you will see the Museo del Novecento, Museum of the 20th Century, located inside Palazzo dell'Arengario, an example of rationalist architecture from the fascist era, with twin buildings erected to arringare, to harangue, to address speeches to the crowds below. The building fully embodies the city's vision of dynamism and change, and displays the most important 20th century Italian art collections. Let's hear from Vincenzo Trione, lecturer, historian and art critic for the Corriere della Sera newspaper.
There are 3 moments in the Museo del Novecento that I think are essential. The first one is futurism. I think that we're privileged in Milan to have a public museum showing the best of futuristic art. The heart and stronghold of futurism was Milan, and its very best is in these rooms. The second highlight is, without a doubt, metaphysics and De Chirico's works. Perhaps it's because I have a close relationship with De Chirico. He's the artist I've worked on the longest. So I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to see some of the masterpieces of metaphysics in Milan. The other great Milanese moment, which corresponds in a way with futurism, is the presence of the artist Lucio Fontana. And I have to say, the whole sequence of Fontana's works, of his cuts, and the luminous spiral that looks out from the Arengario building onto the Piazza del Duomo, well, I think that's an absolute masterpiece that visitors shouldn't miss.
The museum building is next to another landmark, Palazzo Reale, the Royal Palace. From the Sforza family to Napoleon, and from the plague to the Second World War bombings, Palazzo Reale has ancient origins that are intertwined with the city's history. As you walk up the main staircase at the entrance to the building, it's easy to imagine the lavish receptions with lords and ladies in period costume and the daily life of the court. The staircase leads to various rooms where you can retrace the history that led to it becoming a political centre, the home of rulers, and the cultural heart of Lombardy's capital city. Even today, it continues to be the city's exhibition hub, and Milan City Council has been organising and staging some of the most important art exhibitions here for years. Let's hear from Trione again.
I think that, on an Italian level, Palazzo Reale is the highest profile and most visited exhibition space. It has a very varied program, and over the years it's become even more prominent, in the sense that Palazzo Reale also began to host exhibitions at a European level. It's still a space to be explored. I think Palazzo Reale is a paradox. It's the most visited place, but the least known. I mean, we all go and see Palazzo Reale. It's a bit of a pilgrimage that we have to make. But none of us really knows the secrets of that building. How it was born, in what circumstances, the first projects, how it's changed. I remember years ago I talked about it with the director, Domenico Piraina, and he himself said, the Milanese don't really know the reality and the history of Palazzo Reale, even though they go there. Perhaps the big challenge is to get to know a place like this, which is truly magical and which offers some extraordinary opportunities for exhibitions.
To know the place, as Vincenzo Trione was saying, we need to remember one of the most dramatic moments of its history. August 1943. Suddenly, a bomb hits the east wing of Palazzo Reale. Rooms are completely destroyed, and with them frescoes, sculptures, furniture and ornaments. The ceiling shatters into pieces and falls down, collapsing violently onto the marble below, destroying it. The spectacular mirrors burst in a dazzling explosion. The fire burns the plaster of the caryatids, the supporting female sculptures, decapitating them. They become a symbol of the destruction caused by the Second World War, and from that moment on, the room is named after them, the Sala delle Cariatidi, or Hall of the Caryatids.
Anything displayed in the Sala delle Cariatidi becomes a masterpiece. I mean, it's one of those magical places. I saw a work by Maurizio Cattelan, La Nona Ora, the Ninth Hour, the famous work with the Pope hit by a meteorite. It was gigantic, there on a red carpet, and it was so powerful. Every time I've seen an installation designed especially for that space, I remember an exhibition by Amos Gittai in the Sala delle Cariatidi, for example, they have such power in there. They're so charged with emotion. At the time, I'd studied a lot about the relationship between Italy and Dali and Milan, and one of the places Dali loved most was the Sala delle Cariatidi. It fascinated him because there was this effect of decadent beauty. And then if you combine Dali, Picasso, the painting of Guernica, you can see how that place resembles a kind of ruin crumbling before us, which holds an extraordinary fascination for contemporary artists.
Per I moderni ha un fascino straordinario.
Time to go towards another cultural, educational and artistic hub of the city, the Brera district. Walk through Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II, the arcade dedicated to King Victor Emmanuel II of Italy, towards Piazza della Scala. Don't worry, we'll discuss the Scala in depth in our itinerary dedicated to music. Where were we? From Piazza della Scala, down Via Verdi, we get to the atmospheric little streets in the district of Brera, where the squalor and prostitution of the 19th century has been replaced by high-end shops, antique stores and alfresco cafes. In the middle of the district is the imposing Brera complex, a unique conglomerate of institutions of learning: the Pinacoteca, Art Gallery, the Accademia, the Academy of Art, the Orto Botanico, Botanical Gardens, and the Biblioteca Braidense, or Braidense Library. There is also the Osservatorio Astronomico, the Astronomical Observatory. This was where Schiaparelli first saw the surface of Mars and thought he saw some lines in the distance. He wrote that they were canali, channels. British newspapers wrongly wrote that they were artificial canals. It was a mistranslation and, combined with humankind's desire not to be alone in the universe, people all over the world began to talk about Martians. To discover this diverse world, you have to go beyond the austere facade of Palazzo Brera and enter the courtyard, where a surprising transformation awaits, as art historian Angela Vettese describes.
The doorway of number 28 Via Brera, the facade, are very gloomy, definitely not unharmonious, but surely sombre. Then you go in, and gradually, the further you go in, there's more light, not less. And there is more opulence, more imagination. So we've got this almost military facade. And then, if you follow the route that leads to the art gallery, you see staircases, airy windows with Vitruvian proportions. An idea of a closed cloister, but one that opens onto different activities, really taking into account this feature, which is the nature of the city. In the past, they used to talk about the courtyards of Milan, but it's not just courtyards. Behind these gloomy facades, gradually, there is a good mood, which, however, is only accessible if you've earned it, if you've managed to go beyond that forbidding and hard threshold.
Della prima durezza, ecco.
Once you are in the courtyard, it's time to explore the Pinacoteca, an essential place for art lovers. 200 years of history, with over 400 works on display, including paintings and sculptures, from the Middle Ages to the 20th century. It is an art gallery devoted to the people. This is the reason it was founded by the young revolutionary Napoleon Bonaparte, whose muscular bronze statue welcomes visitors. The Accademia, or Brera Academy of Arts, also overlooks the courtyard. It was founded when Milan was under Austrian rule and has been training young artists from all over the world for centuries. They include Korean artist Minjung Kim, who took here her first steps towards international fame and now works in New York and France.
When I did art at university, all my colleagues went to New York, or a few went to Paris. We all learnt English at school, so it was easier for us to go there. But I'd always admired Western art, because I studied Eastern art using traditional materials like paper and ink. It got me interested in Western art. I'd never thought about contemporary art, though. But to give my art an origin, I thought about European, Renaissance art. For me, it's the age that's most representative of Western art. Then I decided I wanted to live here, and I couldn't come as an immigrant. In theory, I didn't need to study anymore, because I even had a PhD in art. But I had to have a reason to be here in order to get a residence permit. So I looked for an art school so I could stay in Italy, and I found the Brera Academy. It had a great reputation because of some of the artists who'd studied there. So I applied. Really, more to live in Italy than to go to the academy itself. But it went really well. And at that point, I started to see the Renaissance as something more specific. I loved the Renaissance in Lombardy, where Leonardo da Vinci was. So I thought it would be a great choice for the rest of my life.
It's fascinating to hear about the difference between Eastern teaching methods and the Western methods at Accademia di Brera.
For me, it was completely different, because in Korea, art at university, the equivalent of the academy, shouldn't show any authenticity, because you learn techniques only by copying your teacher. You shouldn't say, "This is mine." In fact, that's the worst thing you could say. So the school had already decided. 3 hours of this, 3 hours of sculpture and engraving, watercolours and oils. You learn everything as a technique. But at the Accademia di Brera, we had to choose our teachers, and I was panicking because I didn't understand the system. It was completely different.
In the courtyard in Brera, there is also the Fernanda Café, with its large, bright windows and striking paintings on the walls. It's a crossover with the museum space, the perfect place for artists, students and tourists who want to relax and chat, combining great food with art. Now we've had our coffee, let's put our headphones back on. In the next episode, we'll discover the atmospheric Porta Venezia district and its artistic treasures. To listen to the next episodes, follow us on your favourite podcast platforms or visit www.casemuseo.it, where you can also buy the Casa Museo card to visit the Poldi Pezzoli Museum, the Bagatti Valsecchi Museum and the Villa Necchi Campiglio of Milan's house museums at a discount price. The Boschi di Stefano House Museum is free to visit.